many people are here doing this kind of work. Well, we can move to next segment, and I have one thing to announce. So next segment will be Elena Milova, which is from um, longevity.io, which is an organization to promote and support longevity research, particularly with NGOs, non-profit organizations. But unfortunately, because of some very, very urgent issues, she couldn't able to join, which she need to handle today itself. Uh, she just sent this very short notice recently, so that's very bad. So skipping Elena because he's not available, we can directly move to the panel. Basically, are discussing. We already are in the discussion here, asking question to each other. Um, anyone want to ask and start, initiate anything? Just please. Ilya, do you want to say anything? So.
Yeah, I always want to say anything. I'm not sure exactly what fits this context, but yeah, my main idea, my main thought always is how we can advance this field, specifically in India. As I asked Sarah, what's the state of longevity advocacy now in India? I hope that we can do a little more, because I feel that it
Yeah.
Even less than it was a few years ago. That's my feeling. Maybe I'm wrong, but do you have
We
any
lost
thoughts?
some words from you.
No, my words are important. No, I mean, I've been wondering how we can advance longevity advocacy more in India, because I feel that now it is even less than it was a few years ago when India Future Society was founded. So do you have any thoughts how this work can be intensified? What
Yeah.
is
So if I want to add myself, so being in India Future Society, I find it's very difficult. Like you say, we are more of non-profit organizations, and it's very difficult to drive this toward a nation like India, where people are looking for job first, rather than going for more activism. But people who are already involved, like already in this profession, already in this direction, they were very interested in that. But usually, uh, I don't know what to say, but we get very less involvement from people. That's what I'm trying to say. So one way for us to go with for some kind of attractive scheme which benefit both sides, maybe not financially, but at intellectual level, maybe research level for researchers who could be activists as well. I think that's one way to go. And what Alex, for example, is doing as a company, as an organization which is benefiting. I mean, these kind of things can be also initiated in India. And I think that could be one way to go ahead. And actually, we are discussing a lot, like, for example, with Sarah and other people we have in India Future Society, try to have a lots of brainstorming that what else we can do so that people have more initiative toward longevity in general. And good thing is that government is taking some step, like Sarah doesn't mention, but there's something called Ayushman medical policy, if I'm saying the right name. It's from the Indian
Yes,
government.
right, right. I actually purposely omitted that thing because Ayush, it involves naturopathy and homeopathy, and in scientific community, we do not give that much amount of value to homeopathy because still it's not a peer-reviewed proven science. So that part I purposely omitted because Ayush is a very recent phenomena by Indian government. I think government should pay more attention in the areas like how to fight aging by understanding the aging as a biological process and in allopathy medicine. So that's why I omitted that part.
Okay, okay. So, well, just I'm sharing that. So that kind of thing is happening from Indian government, and there's a lots of thing is coming from our Planning Commission of India in terms of AI for lots of broad prospect, including
Right.
aging and longevity research. And I think that, for example, what Alex just mentioned, the collaboration with Intel India, and I hope there will be more and more such collaboration in there. And And Indian government also kind of creating a kind of environment for small ideas, SMEs, small, medium enterprises, to come up with these kind of thoughts. So there is something going on, but very, very early stage, and it's not visible for public yet. More of a stage where they are still very early stage that nobody knows about that. And mostly things are happening around digital, artificial intelligence, machine learning, that kind of thing at one place, and also lots of things happening where we're talking about intervention, monitoring technology, which is not just a simple sensor. We're talking about like a EEG, ECG, but also more of digital devices, which wearable digital devices to monitor you. So there's that kind of thing I have noticed in last 1 year is happening a lot, but mostly it's more commercially focused, which is not wrong. That's also one aspect. And like I said, people looking for job as well. It's India, so the job rate is so very low, and people want to secure that part first before moving to anything else. So less commitment, but yeah, I'm open for ideas from more expert like Ilya and Alex, and I hope anyone else like to give an input here.
Right. So I have one question for Alex. So any advice for us Indians how we can improve, in the field of aging and longevity, improve our research and participation? Any advice from your part? What can be done?
Well, I cannot give an advice to a nation, right? Because I think India is not only in India; it's also in Silicon Valley and in Australia and everywhere, right? So it's a very global nation. So my advice would be to pay more attention to aging as a disease, as something that needs to be fixed. I know that in Hinduism, for example, there is kind of a belief that there is reincarnation, and things are being taken from the perspective of acceptance and just let it be, or well, there is always tomorrow. There needs to be a sense of urgency when it comes to aging, because this life is becoming much more interesting, and you don't want to be a cat or a dog or any other animal or a tree or another human being born later, because you're going to lose a lot of advantage. So in this life you can make great things, and you just need to live long enough to be able to enjoy the abundance. So this is your best life of all, right? And we need to basically, what came out of India was Hinduism and great philosophy that now propagated in the West. So if you can make something like this with a twist, that now to earn some karma you need to contribute to aging research, that would be really great. Making a joke, of course. But yeah, I just wanted to encourage everybody to go into the field of aging and longevity science. Of course, not just with pure advocacy or just let's do it tomorrow. You need to do the work. You need to go into one field of biomedical sciences or another, and make a name for yourself and make sure you know the pathways. Again, that's kind of the entry barrier to enter into my organization. So if I ask you to draw a wind pathway, and if you're wrong, sorry guys, no chance. Or if I ask you to write a very quick search algorithm and you cannot do that, sorry guys. But yeah, I think that you need to become a very well-rounded MMA fighter in biology and machine learning to be able to go into aging research before kind of advocating for it. But now we really need to have science-backed advocacy. We need to get more people involved, and the best way to advocate is through research papers and through real credible achievements. So if you don't have an achievement and you don't really contribute to the field, it's very difficult to convince other people to join. But if you can see the success, also commercial success, it's very easy for people to join, because what's driving people nowadays is greed. It's it's all the hidden motives that we don't advertise, but it's important to appeal to those hidden motives to get people into this field. So yeah, it would be great to get more aging research in India in general.
By the way, if I may add, a few years ago, as I mentioned, this petition that we drafted to the Indian government was sent to a few actors there. You can also check some of the suggestions there. I think they're still valid, how it can be advanced in India.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Ilya. I think
Yeah,
there's some question.
of course, again, just join the commercial initiative. So if a few hospitals want to deploy Edgemetric, and we could start collaborating, that would create more resources for people to join the industry. That would create more motivation. And again, I think that before Elon Musk, a lot of people were talking about electric cars and about electric future and about solar. But only after the practical commercial companies were created, we've got an industry. So I think that you need to be advocating by doing. So nobody has, developed an electric car by just talking about it.
Here we have a little disagreement with Alex. I think that just advocacy is also valuable. Not everybody has to be a scientist. Some people are just citizens, and we also have a word in it. But everyone is welcome to advance in whatever capacity they feel that they're capable. Yeah, I think there's a place for everybody in this field: scientists, non-scientists, policymakers, advocates.
I think there are some. Thank you again. There are some questions on our chat box from people. Some people agree with Ilya, for example. People talk about distributed autonomous organizations to promote, and people talk about digital curtains. I'm not sure what is that. So it's a question for Alex. Can your company be global input, or are you finding can your company be global input, or are you finding, because of emerging differences with the internet, with so-called digital curtain? Is that
I don't
issue?
understand the question. Yeah, sorry.
I'm also trying to understand what is the question. Can your company be a global input, or are you finding, because of emerging differences with the internet, with so-called digital curtain, thinking in terms of China, mainland, and the USA?
Oh, digital curtain. Okay. Yeah, of course, it's a huge problem, right? So any nationalism or any closure of the borders, reduction in the ability to collaborate is inhibiting our ability to work internationally. And I understand where this is an issue when it comes to critical technologies, and especially things like email, web surfing, news, etc. So things that can really damage a nation, for example, if another nation or a corporation can wants to engage in malicious malpractice. But when it comes to longevity, I think that people who are introducing barriers in longevity economy, they are essentially committing the greatest sin. And yeah, those people, those policymakers who are not excluding longevity research and healthcare in general from those trade wars, they are technically committing a crime against humanity, because if you discover something in China or India or in Cuba, and it extrapolates and starts extending life for everybody, it doesn't matter where penicillin was discovered. It doesn't matter where MRI was discovered. It helps people everywhere. And right now, those barriers where you really need to figure out creative ways, like federated learning, for example, right? So like identifying ways to generate synthetic data or train locally without exporting and importing data. Again, we overcome those barriers like digital curtains by, well, first of all, training locally, right? So that's why it's a good idea to have local sites and work with local partners to avoid those kind of regulatory problems and to be within the guidelines. But of course, there needs to be a movement. So, if those people who are not scientists and who want to advocate for, longevity research, that would be a really nice angle to take, basically advocating for, more open data sharing and also showing examples how they, put their data online for this kind of research. And then you show which data is more valuable, which data is more sensitive. So don't put your passport number and credit card online, but you can put your transcriptomic information or pictures of your skin, etc., that annotated with age and different interventions. So we need to have a community for data sharing, and that would be very, very valuable. Currently, we're avoiding those issues by, well, federated learning, synthetic data, and localizing the presence.
That's a good way to handle that, actually. And that's a very interesting advice as well. So, I mean, so people like Ilya, who's advocating a lot for policies, and actually those policies, the one who also drive governments and organizations, including the insurance company and the clinic, to kind of think about longevity. I mean, these are interrelated, of course. Science and the policy are kind of merged together, and both need to be run in parallel. If it's just a policy and there's nothing happening, that's also not good. And if there's a science and there's no one to support that idea in the policy makers, in the government, in the organization, then also it maybe go in the cold so quickly. I think they are interrelated. So, I mean, I see, in terms of Alex, because I'm more on science side, of course. I'm technologist as well. I'm a researcher as well. So I support the policies, but I always more focus on this side where I'm doing lots of things to try to show something working, something demonstrating to attract people. Doesn't matter, it's a BCI, which is my field of research, and also BCI is highly related with longevity as well in terms of mental health, at least. But I almost never saw people, doing research in the field of machine learning or artificial intelligence, which is more around longevity. I think for some reason, they do the research where they are looking for some kind of cancer-related genes, the effect of certain genes which is related to the cancer, to identify, to diagnose it as early as possible, that kind of thing, which is, of course, again, related with the longevity. But not in the main domain. That domain is still quite of, maybe I'm not in the touch, maybe that's my own opinion. But I'm not sure, it's a policy, again, it's related with the policy which come from the top university on the top, that they want to drive the research in certain direction, which is just maybe about tracking people or pedestrians and that kind of machine learning focused research, or creating a 3-dimension things, but less on the biomarkers related to aging and less on biomarker related to physical being. However, there's a lots of wet labs which do this kind of research, but when you talk about combining these two, not too much. So do you, I mean, as Alex and also Ilya, I mean, what do you think in that direction? Do you also, I mean, Alex particularly, because you are involved in that company, do you also promote certain policy to the government? For example, Hong Kong in your case, because I think you are located in Hong Kong most of the time, right? And for Ilya, the question is that, do you also promote that kind of thing in the university level as well and outside the, of course, outside the university, I'm aware a lot, but at the university level? I mean, how to attract those people? That's what I'm asking in general, to do that research in the direction.
Very simple. I'm, as I said, I'm a half a scientist, a quarter science, mostly an advocate, and you can very easily attract different segments simply through the governmental advocacy, simply by issuing calls for research proposals or research and development proposals. You just select the field that you want to advance. Let it be AI or biomarkers of aging or whatever needs support, and then you just advocate for a call for research proposal, and that itself involves many actors into the field. Maybe not everybody win the funding, but great many labs and institutions become involved in the field just thinking about it. They actually probably the best example I can give is the Biorex aging call for research proposal that I had the honor to draft the first draft, that was specifically to advance geroscience, to advance biomarkers development, and 200 labs from Israel and UK submitted. The people who never thought about aging, never thought that they were actually aging, suddenly thought, oh, actually I can use my technique to fight aging, or I can think of a new area. So from a simple level of for call for research proposals, you can attract many people, and for that you need public support. If the government doesn't see that people support this kind of initiative, forget it. They'll move to other agendas. So once again, it's as I said, it's a link between actual science and advocacy, but they both,
So from my perspective, I do not differentiate between science, being a scientist, being an academic, being an entrepreneur, or being a policy advocate. So even on drug discovery, I preach what we call the MMA principles, mixed martial arts. And I might actually even show you a slide on that. So I would not differentiate between the different approaches, because to win on aging, you need to be good at everything, and you need to learn as much as possible from multiple disciplines and participate in multiple disciplines. So what we did in policy making, so pretty much at every conference that we organize or organized in the past, we usually have a policy workshop where we bring together a bunch of pharmaceutical companies, government, we bring together the NIH or the FDA, and let them talk to the scientists and also credible entrepreneurs to understand what needs to be done on the government level and the pharmaceutical level in order for us to accelerate the field further, and at the same time without breaking things. Like, for example, the classification of aging as disease, for some areas it might it might play as a benefit substantially, right? So it will create a regulatory norm. So you would need to achieve certain standards in order for you to be able to operate. So you're actually introducing a restriction, and for some of the areas that restriction might not be very good for innovation. So you need to think about those issues from multiple perspectives to ensure that in some areas you have full freedom to operate and innovate, and from some areas you need to ensure that people show the data before they make a claim. And we published a bunch of papers, you know, classifying aging as a disease in the context of ICD-11 in 2015, 2014, held a number of workshops. And now we are trying to participate as much as possible in conferences like Metabesity, for example. I think that's a truly amazing conference, bringing together policymakers and academics and the entrepreneurs in the most credible way. So they have usually, you know, people from the FDA, sometimes as close to the commissioner as possible. They have people from the top kind of decision-making posts at the NIH. And they have, you know, the current president of the National Academy of Medicine, Victor Tsao, for example, speaking. And, you know, sign up for Metabesity conference. It's coming up in just 2 weeks, I think. October 15th or something like that. So just Google Metabesity, and you'll see how we engage in policy and how others engage in policy making to ensure that there is an intimate link between the government, nonprofits, academics and entrepreneurs, and of course the pharma industry, because some of those fields that we are trying to disrupt are not disruptable without the consent of those people who are going to be disrupted. Like the pharmaceutical industry, I had a lot of kind of rosy glasses, and I had a much more optimistic outlook on this industry before I spent, you know, 6 years in it, and realized that some things are there for a very good reason, and some things are not going to change, and it would be better for them not to change until we have a very credible advance that allows us to move things forward faster. It's not just the regulatory framework. Like, for example, a very good example is COVID-19. So you've got the entire world sitting in their houses for 9 months. Lots of scientists, everybody repositioned their efforts towards, you know, finding a cure. And where is it? So some things require time and require a lot of trials and errors and require policy. So that is why, and sometimes it requires kind of naive people. So that's where I agree with Ilya, but I also need to ensure we need to ensure that those naive people who are advocating or you know, getting into the field, they do not break things, right? Because very often when you don't have the intimate understanding of the underlying policy and the underlying practices, you might break things. And you might, you know, criticize people who are doing things slower, but they are doing those things for a reason. And on the other hand, you need to criticize sometimes people who are doing things slowly, and they could have done it faster and better, right? So like, for example, the recent failures by Restore Bio, right? I'm not sure how many of you are following that particular trial, right? And even understanding why it failed and why it could have been saved, and why the company made the decision to go into phase 3 with a different molecule than was used in, you know, phase 2, and why didn't they use the aging biomarkers, for example, and many other things. So you need to be familiar with the field. And my recommendation to everybody is that you advocate, but please just, you know, learn about the field as much as possible. And I'll show you a slide that I really like to show in drug discovery. And that's MMA. So it's a fun slide to show, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we are trying to do at Insilico, right? So there is one really cool MMA fighter. I'm not into MMA, but I really like the principle, right? So Zabit Nurmagomedov, the guy from Dagestan. And, you know, just watch a couple of his fights and think about, you know, if you are a good Taekwondo black belt, you know, third dan, If you go against him, he'll just crush you. If you are the best in the world in any martial art individually, he is going to beat you, and he is going to beat you in seconds. And many of those MMA fighters are going to beat you in seconds. If you are just good at grappling, they are going to kick you and punch you, and you are not going to survive there for a long time. If you are good at kicking and punching, but you are not good at grappling, they are going to destroy you on the floor very, very quickly. And in that sport, even if you don't know how to be bragging properly, you are not going to earn as much money, even if you are, some of the world's best. You need to be able to do it in style. And that's kind of what we need to embrace in longevity research. So you need to be good in chemistry, you need to be good in biology, you need to be good in target discovery, in pharma, in bioinformatics, in AI, in policy, and become a well-rounded MMA fighter for aging and longevity. So that's what I preach. So regardless of where you start, you might start with tabula rasa, but you need to aim for, be Zabit Nurmagomedov of longevity. And that's what I'm trying to embrace in my team. So people who work for me, they usually can do all three.
That's pretty good takeaway message, I think, from today's conference. That's pretty interesting. MMA style. Anyone want to add anything? Otherwise, we can move toward the end.
I agree. I'm also, trying to combine different areas. The problem is, we are still human beings. We have our strengths and weaknesses. So
Yeah.
I would also emphasize, that the need to go with the strengths, with that we have. We all have a common goal of longevity. So we'll do whatever.
Well, again, that's great advice from all of you, also the audience. We are moving to the end, basically, and then I would like to thank all of you to give your time and join this conference and give your thoughts and your work you're doing. That's very nice and enriching us with awareness and knowledge about aging. And I like the term MMA fighter. I'm going to use it. And how we can all join hand, yeah, join our hand to promote longevity. That's pretty great. And policy making, of course, the science point of view or the policy making point of view. Actually, MMA, we should follow the MMA style. So thank you again for everyone.
Longevity
and
MMA.
Audience. Thank you for today. This going.
Avinash, I also want to, if I also may thank you, Avinash and Siddharth and you, Sara, for keeping the IFS flame going, for keeping longevity advocacy and research in India going.
Thank you. Yes, can't be happy without your support, Ilya. You are very supportive from beginning. So, and again, thank you to Alex, and thank you for Sara, and thank you again for all the audience. Thank you, guys. So that's the end, and bye-bye. Have a great day, remaining day ahead.
Longevity day.
Yeah, happy longevity, yeah.
Happy longevity.
Well.